We're going to do the last part of the book of Acts, and the title is The Power That Was Revealed to 276 people. 276 people is that number actually means something when we read the passages. So today's keyword that I had picked for my sermon is moment. The word kairo is the time in Greek words, but I like to focus more on moment of a life. It's not long duration of years of period of life that we're struggling with, but it's most of the time it's that moment that we are struggling with. And so we're going to focus on how God works in the moment of our life. And so that's the word that we're going to use as a keyword. As you know, Apostle Paul is headed to Rome right now. And we call this as his fourth mission journey to Rome, because his journey, it was always purpose to do mission for God. And so that's why we say, but it is actually, he is transported from Caesarea to Rome as a charged criminal. He's not sentenced to be criminal yet, but he was charged. So that's what this journey is about. And in this journey, the unexpected things do happen, and that's the moment that we're going to look into, and we're going to learn how God has used those opportunities of life to reveal His power to those people who are involved. Okay, so let's try read these verses together. Let's begin. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of the Lord, angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve, stood beside me and said, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar. And God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, man. For I have faith in God that it will happen just as He told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea, when about midnight the sailors sensed they were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took soundings again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rock, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailor let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the boat. Then Paul said to the centurion and soldier, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." So the soldiers cut the rope that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. For the last 14 days, he said, "You have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food you needed to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head." After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves, although there were 276 of us on board. Amen. So, Apostle Paul's journey begins from Caesarea. Actually, I have not put up a map here. I'm not sure. Can you read? Can you kind of see behind this picture? From his boat is traveling from Caesarea to all the way through this and all the way to here to the Rome. That's the whole trip, the journey that is taking place. As we are looking into this, Paul is charged as a criminal. It's quite interesting though. The governor and the Judea king, the Agrippa, they found them not guilty. They found no guilty, but Paul wanted to stand before the soldiers in the Rome, and because of that reason, they say we are going to send you to Rome. But that's it's oxymoron in the sense that if somebody's found not guilty, you don't send that person to the higher court. You just do that. So the reason they did that is actually they made a political decision to get rid of Paul from the land of Palestine, basically the land that they are reigning. And so the governor and the king, they kind of say, okay, let's get rid of him anyway. He's causing problem here, so just send him to the Rome. And so that's why they were traveling from Caesarea on a boat. As they're journeying out to Rome from Caesarea, they couldn't find a boat that traveled from that Caesarea place to Rome directly. So they got a boat that goes to the Turkey, today's Turkey, which is in Minor Asia. And so they rode on that boat, and then they were traveling. And so they were traveling, I'll show you actually the other way. They were traveling from here. This is the Turkey, modern day Turkey, the nation. Actually, they changed their name recently. And they were traveling right by the ocean side like this. And at here, Mura, they changed the boat. That boat that travels all the way to the Rome here. And as they were traveling like this, somehow the weather became very hostile. And so they was quietly, slowly, they were traveling, and they arrived at this port. This is the island of Crete. They parked there and they couldn't travel anymore. And when that happened, basically Paul, one of the charged criminal, stood up before all the people saying, actually, we should not travel out of this island here, because if we do, we're gonna have our boat damaged, and maybe it will threaten the lives of the people within the boat. So we shouldn't. And so that's what he told the centurion who was in charge of all the criminals. But centurion heard this and decided not to listen to Paul, because who would listen to Paul anyway? Because at the time when Paul said this, the boat owner and captain of the boat, they said it's fine for us to travel out. And so what they decided to do is from this port, it's called Fair Haven Island. It's the name of the Fair Haven. It's a beautiful island. The side of this is so beautiful. And so from here, they decided to travel all the way to this west here called Phoenix Port. So it's the same island, but they wanted to move to the port that is on the west. The reason they did that is because at Fair Haven Port here, there was no any facility that it is for many people to stay there. As you can picture, any port city, they have a lot of entertainment facilities where all the sailors, they can drink and party and all these. And this Fair Haven was a small port. They really didn't have anything like that. For them to stay here for a long time for winter, it was just impossible. And so they said, okay, let's move up to bigger port up here, which is about 60 kilometers away, which is very short distance. So they wanted to go here because there was a lot of entertainment up here. But Paul said, no. If we live here, we may run into a danger. But no one heard him. No one decided here. And so they went. They didn't hear. They went. And as they were journeying out of that port, suddenly hurricane came, struck the boat. I mean, these sailors and these people, they are very experienced people, and they've been traveling in that area, so they know weathers and all the direction and everything. So this is unexpectedly happened, this hurricane, definitely. As this was coming at them, they were lost full control of the boat. So the boat was just drifting. Just drifting. And instead of going up to the upper port, it was drifting down south. I mean, they couldn't do anything. They just drifted, and then it went to the place called Gouda. It's one of the islands on the south. They arrived at the Gouda on one of the islands, and they could not leave the lifeboat. What was happening was they had a small lifeboat hanging behind the main boat, and because of the windstorm, the hurricane was so big, they were fearful of losing that lifeboat. So what they did is at the Gouda, they lifted up the lifeboat, and then they tied onto the main boat and barely made that happen. But the storm did not end. It was continuing. First day and second day and third day and fourth day, they couldn't do anything. And so the boat, as you can see, the hurricane brings the waves into the boat. It becoming heavier, and then the boat was sinking. So they decide to throw away everything that is in the boat. They throw away their tools. They had tools that they can use it for fixing it, whatever. They don't need it now, but they were carrying those, so they were throwing those away. Also the luggages. I mean, it was too heavy. The boat was sinking, so they threw away the luggages. Not only that, they also throw away all the utensils, and they things that they need right away. Because you can imagine the boat was sinking because the water was just pouring up all over the place. I mean, can you imagine that? You simply just wanted to go travel up north to find a better place where they have better lodging, better entertainment. That's what normally we want in life. Very simple. I mean, you would say, oh, the foolish people, right? No, but that's us. A lot of time when we make decisions to move on, we tend to look at, oh, that's where the things are. Things that we desire. And simply because it's there, we just not listen to the Paul when Paul said, no, don't go. You need to stay here. There's time that when we must stay at the place, even though you're not satisfied. Even though it's uncomfortable. Can you believe that? That sometimes is a wise thing to do? For these people, definitely it was. If they only heard Paul's advice. But they had more experience. They knew better. But you know what? Just like the life, unexpected things happen. No one foresee what is coming. And so one of the lessons that we learn is this, we have a desire to go someplace, better place. And you just hate the place that you are at. But sometimes, maybe that is the place that it is best for you. For some reason. Apostle Paul did not explain how he knew. Typically when God tell him directly, he would tell you that God did. But this case, maybe it was hunch. Maybe he was just wise. We don't know. But it was only him knew what would happen when they depart from that fair heaven port. Many times, like that happened to us too. And so young people, you may not be happy with where you are. You need to discern and ask yourself whether this is out of your desire, your ambition, that you seek to leave the place and go to the better port. Or is it the will of God involved in this decision making? And that is what we need to discern in life. Because the place that we are, it's not a permanent place, you know that. The school, the job, whatever, nothing is permanent, I'm telling you. It just moves on. When I got a job in the church, before I come over here, the deacon who was interviewing me made me to say, you know what, Pastor, I want to make a temporary pastor versus full-time permanent pastor. And he was kind of looking at me like, I'd like to make you a full-time pastor, but I don't know you yet, so I'm going to make you a temporary pastor. And so I kind of laughed at him. So how many pastors hired full-time and stayed here? What was the longest time they stayed here? It's like, maybe 2 years. I kind of laughed at him. It's like, well, I don't mind. You don't need to hire me. I'll be here staying more than 2 years. And I did. Actually, I stayed 3 more years. I didn't get the title of permanent, temporary. I just laughed at him. It's like, no. It's like, what's up with it, like permanent and temporary? Well, it doesn't matter. It's the commitment. It's a journey anyway. Same for you. You may feel you're stuck. We are on the road. We are moving. Just they could not stay for a few days and few months. They made the decision, and they should have had her listen to Paul, but they journey out. Now everybody's in danger. All 276 people are in danger. It's one of the lessons. The second thing we learn from that is as they continue to throw things away, nothing got better. Weather didn't change, okay? People had no hope. It was daytime, but it was dark as a night. They couldn't see anything, literally, because of the wave and the wind. Can you imagine that? It's like there's no daytime for this journey. And because the boat was moving so much water they could not even eat. For 5 days, 10 days, they couldn't eat anything. And people lost hope of life. And at the time, Paul stood up and told the people, this is all. For I have faith in God that it will happen just as He told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. And telling them, my God told me that the ship that we are on will be destroyed, but none of the other people's lives will be in danger. Out of nothing, they are under this huge storm, and the boat is tossing from here to here and there to there, and they don't even can stand, and they couldn't even eat anything. And Paul just standing up saying, people, don't worry. My God told me none of you will die. Now let me ask you, if you're one of those people who listen to Paul, how would you react? Some will say, I like to see that, as long as that my life is secured. They like to believe, right? I think that's where most people will. I like to believe, even though I don't believe him. It's the kind of probably that's what it is. But
They're all seasick.
Oh yeah, that too. Definitely. Now the thing is though, this time as Apostle Paul is telling them, don't worry, none of us will die. He gave a reason why he confidently saying this. Why did he say? He said, my God sent me an angel to tell me that's what will happen. And so Apostle Paul is saying, actually, God that I believe told me you're okay. So now people heard it. It's not opinion of Paul, right? But now what Paul's saying is, it is actually God that I worship and believe told me that will be okay. And so people heard it, and they understood, and they probably half-heartedly wanted to believe, but not believing. Well, they will continue to be fearing. But the reason actually the God called Apostle Paul that way is because he said, do not be afraid, Paul, you must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. All these 275 people, including Paul, 276 people, these people are there because there's purpose. According to God, he said, those 275 people, their lives are gave to the hands of Paul. There's a purpose behind this whole storms going on, hurricanes going on. Well, 2 weeks passed, 14 days passed. Nothing changed. But midnight, the sailors, they sense something is changing about the boat. They kind of sensed it. Probably these sailors are the only one that can sense this because they are the professionals, right? And so they sense that the boat is approaching toward the land. And so they took a sound measurement. I don't know, sounding measurement, I don't know how they do it, but I was thinking maybe drop a line and see how deep it is. And so they did that, and they realized it was about like 36 meter deep. 36 meter, that's how many feet is that? It was pretty deep still. And then after a while, they took the measurement again, and it dropped. Now this time it was 27 meters. So it tells us that the boat is now drifting toward the land. And so the sailors and the people who were with the boat, they prepared themselves. So what have done is they put everything prepared, they lowered everything, and they prepared the landing of the ship. But as they were preparing to land, the sailors in front of the boathead trying to lower the lifeboat. They were trying to lower the lifeboat, and Paul have catch them do that. The reason they were lowering the lifeboat was because these sailors wanted to escape to save their lives first. Can you imagine? People who are in charge of the boat, they wanted to save their life first, so that they want to ride on the lifeboat first without knowing all these passengers. Can you imagine that is happening? And Paul caught them doing that, and Paul reported to the centurion and then the soldiers saying, we are not going to be safe without these people. If these people leave the boat, then everybody will die. And so centurion and soldiers, they heard this, and they came, and they cut the rope that was tied down the lifeboat. And so the lifeboat got dropped to the sea and disappeared. And so now, people, they have lost even the lifeboat now. Can you imagine everybody who is on the boat right now, they realize, oh my goodness, no, we are all dead. This boat is not that small. So for them to go to the land where there's no port, it's impossible. And so they need that lifeboat, but now the lifeboat is gone unexpectedly. Because some people were stupid and bold enough to, just greedy enough to save their own life. And can you imagine that happen in life somehow? We want to be somewhere, we want to go somewhere, but unexpectedly, it's just continue to delay. It just things not resolved the way that we want it to be resolved. And we run out of patience. And they go through the same thing here. What do you do? What do you do? You see, these people, they could not see what's coming. But what we need to realize is, even in the midst of the circumstances that they were in, can we say maybe that's the intervention of God? I mean, this is the hard part. How can we see my troubled moment as opportunity for God to involve in my life? Well, we personally see that as a big problem we are in. We personally see it as this is a hardship. This is just unhappy moment of our life. But those of us who have faith in God, we need to see, even at this moment, the will of God is involved. Just like God told Paul, don't worry, you will be okay. You will get to that destination, Rome, and you will stand before the Caesars. And all these 275 people, I entrusted their life to your hand. Can you imagine that? All these 275 people without Paul, let's say if Paul wasn't on the boat, guess what happened to them? They're all dead. They all dead. They will have vanity life. They'll end in the storm. But actually God had a greater purpose for them though. See, as they were watching how Paul behaved in the storm, under the storm. They see how Paul behaved. Can you imagine seeing a criminal, charged criminal, stand before the people and say, my God, whom I worship and believe, tells me that we'll be okay. I mean, he's rising as a leader. It's not the centurion, he's the leader here on the boat now. It's not the owner of the boat is the leader. It's not the captain of the boat is the leader here. It is simply a criminal rise as a leader among people, and then he's speaking. You see, sometimes the life struggle maybe is for us to be rise as leaders. Not to fear what we need to overcome, but trust in the promise. And that is the second part of the message. It may be unexpectedly delayed, but it is the delay maybe for you to step up, be a leader. The third one is this. Of course, everybody wants to be at that final station, right? That final destination. Of course, that's where we are going. But you know what? Sometimes we have to go through an intermediate station. A port that we unscheduled it. We never wanted to go there, but we get to go. I mean, sometimes that's what happened in life, right? I don't know. Young people, tell me. Have you been some places, something that you didn't expect to be at? Mostly, oh yeah, I didn't want to be here. You may say that. I didn't want to be here, but I'm here. That's one thing too, right? But you are in the journey of life, especially young people. I mean, I still see myself, I'm in the intermediate port somewhere, in intermittent port where I am passing through. I don't look at this as my final destination station. I'm just passing through. That's my attitude in all things. But I will do it as if this is my settling. I will do my best to make it as my place. But I am moving on. And same, all of you, same way. I know you're from Japan, right? It's like, yeah, Japan here. I mean, this is passing through. I know a lot of you maybe lived here long enough, but it could be passing through port. And so, sometimes you have destination in mind, but places that we are in is just passing through because God's will is in there. So what's going on here? As they were approaching the port, the land, what happened was there was an area where two waters merging. And so I'm thinking it may be one of those like Russian river is flowing out to the ocean and then ocean water is meeting. That's one picture I see it. Or the other one is maybe there's two currents under the ground, under the sea is swirling and then they are meeting in one place. It's quite a dangerous place. And so what was happening was as these two waters meeting, it created a sand dune under the water. So as the boat was going in and the front of the boat got stuck right there and couldn't move anymore. And so guess what happened? So the front was stuck to the sand, whatever that, there was obstacle there. And the hurricane, the storm did not end yet. So it was blowing behind the boat so hard. It was destroying. Like boat was moving before with the wind. So the wind did not break the boat. But now boat is stuck. So wind is hitting behind. So the boat was destroyed behind the boat. Can you imagine that? You throw away everything you got on the boat. Right? And then the wind is now hitting the behind the boat and the boat is being destroyed. People are just became hopeless. There is no lifeboat and all that, hopeless. When people have no hope, again, this time, Paul stand up, saying this again. You know what? Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head. I think what he's saying is it's not none of you are going to get hurt. I think what he's saying is none of you will die. I think that's what he's saying, right? And then he's saying, you know what? Let's eat because last 14 days we have not eaten anything. Can you imagine they didn't eat anything for last 14 days? And it's not because they didn't have the grain. They had the grain, but they just couldn't eat. And the Paul saying now, let's eat. And he took the bread and he prayed to God. I mean, this criminal, Paul, one of the criminals, Paul standing in the midst of the people, grabbing this bread and lift this to God and pray for the bread and for the people. Now, what does these 275 people do when he's doing this? Can you imagine? I mean, author doesn't really explain. But can you imagine what's going on? As he's praying to God, what are they doing? Are they listening to his prayer? Are they watching him? But for sure that they wish whatever he's praying for would come true. Because I bet Apostle Paul was praying that God, thank you for this bread. God, thank you for the safety of this journey, even though in the midst of hurricane. Thank you for your promise that you promised that none of us will die. Isn't this the same prayer everybody's heart is at this moment? Whether they believe or not, whether they are the Gentile, whether they are the criminal, whether they are the boat owner, the sailors, the captains, soldiers, doesn't matter, right? Everybody has a common ground here that they wish that they would be still living at the end of this. And so they are all praying together. You see, this moment, the reason that somehow we are delayed in our journey, some reason that we are ending up in some place that we didn't want it to be, is to somehow we get opportunity to do what? To call the name of God Almighty, the Creator God. To call the name of Jesus Christ who came to save all the sinners. And that's what Apostle Paul did. And it's so funny. Author Luke really doesn't say how they responded, but this is how he narrated this whole thing. At the end of the prayer, everybody received the bread and they ate. It's almost like, this is just so calm. But can you imagine there's a bread, not enough? They've been hungry for 14 days. And they are the criminals. They are the soldiers. Guess what will happen in normal picture? Normal circumstances? That they will fight for the bread. But nothing like that happens. That's why I know they were listening. That's why I know they were praying together with Paul. And they had their share of bread and they ate. And what they had done is the grain that they left, they tossed them into the sea because they knew that's the only way to save the boat, whatever the pieces they had. So they threw away the grains, bag of grains. That was the last meal for them, basically. You know, as this was happening, the soldiers thought to themselves, thinking, we're gonna let these criminals just swim to the beach, then we're gonna lose them, they're gonna run away. And so soldiers thought to themselves, saying, we gotta kill these criminals. I mean, that's a kind of foolish idea, but somehow that came to the idea of one of the soldiers or the group of soldiers. And the centurion knew that. But it's kind of very interesting statement is made here by the author. He said, because the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life, the reason that centurion had a different idea of letting go of the criminals, let them go freely. The reason that centurion did that is because he wanted to save whose life? Paul's life. If it were Paul, all the criminals were dead by the knife of the soldiers. But you know what? This is what my question got through this. Does centurion know who Paul is? Yes, he knows. He heard about him. Paul, who was accused of being, who created a problem in the land of Jerusalem, and how he was accused, and how all these things are happening. He was watching him all alone. He claimed that he believed in God. But he really didn't believe in God, but he wanted to watch this man. Is he real or not? He was watching all this journey. Even the first time when Paul said, let's not go. We stay here in fair heaven. Don't go to that next port just because it looks green over there. Let's not move there. But centurion didn't listen to him. Remember that? But even though that was happening, he was still watching Paul every step of it. Can you imagine that some of the people around you still watch you? It doesn't matter how strongly you argue or project that you're a believer or Christian, everybody around you still watches you, how you behave, and how you behave. And it is all, they know, oh, you are this. And then the centurion at the end, he concluded this man Paul is worth to save. Very simple, right? He had decided somehow this man is real. What he's saying, what he believes, it is real. And the centurion made clear decision to save his life, Paul. Because of that, he decided to save all the other ones. And they let these criminals swim to the beach. And that's what they did. And so the rest of the people grabbed any pieces of broken wood pieces from the boat and they all swam to the ocean. Guess how many people died doing this? None. This is miracle. Ladies and gentlemen, think about it. I mean, the wind was blowing so strong that back of the boat was being destroyed. This storm didn't stop. They had to swim through the water to reach the land. None of them died, as the God has promised to Paul. This is a miracle. Guess who have watched all this is happening? All 206 people have witnessed. Just as Paul said, my God told me. And so everybody now realized it wasn't a chance. It wasn't a lucky moment for them. It was God's moment. It was God who made them safe. And they began to believe. But God had a bigger plan. He made them land in one of the islands called Malta. Today's island, modern day's island name is Malta, is Malta in old days. As they approached to this island, it was cold, right, because they got wet, and so they decided to gather the woods for the fire. And as Paul, and I mean by now he became a leader among them. But you know what? He goes out there trying to gather the wood. So he did that. As he was gathering the wood, guess what happened? The rattlesnake or the serpent bit him in his hand. And as he was biting, and he just did this, I bet, so it fell off. And one of these the tribal people watched this happening. And they knew they were out of the boat, go through the storm, they almost died, and they're the criminal. But now the serpent didn't. In their culture, they thought only those who deserve to die will go through this kind of circumstances. So they thought, oh, this poor guy must be done very wrong thing who deserve to die. That's what their mindset was going on. And they were expecting Paul to die right after the poison, right? But the thing is, Paul, nothing happened to him. He was going around doing the normal things. Like, well, what's going on? And they begin to believe that Paul is a god now. I mean, these tribal people, all day, that's their thinking, right? It's like, almost. And so he became leader among them, suddenly, God. And so he was invited into the most high person in that island, which we call chief of the tribe, right? And so he was staying in the chief's house. What an elevation. And when he arrived at his house and staying there, guess what happened? The father of this chief, he was ill sick. Out of fever, probably yellow fever, whatever, right? And Paul, there's nothing he can do for him other than what? Lay hand on him. And so he prayed to God to heal him. And guess what happened? Healing came. His father was healed completely. And all these tribal people witnessed the power of Paul. But of course, Paul, he'll say, this is not my power. Whose power? God's power. Even though the writer, Luke, does not really explain it. The funny thing is this. He had to stay there for 3 months. And through the whole winter. They couldn't go anywhere because of the winter season. 3 months. But funny thing is this. Writer, the Luke who wrote this part of the story, he did not say anything about Paul evangelized to them. Most of the places, the mission journey Paul had been, the writer intentionally talked about how Paul powerfully witnesses the name of Jesus Christ and tell people to believe God. But here, After some reason didn't do it. Let me ask you this question. Do you think Paul ever did speak of God and Jesus? Then why is that Luke does not write about it? Answer is very simple. Because he doesn't need to. Because we all know that everybody on that island believed. Simple as that. How do I guess that? Well, at the end of all this 3 months journey, as they were departing from the island, guess what they have done? They greeted Paul and other people and then provided everything they need. Paul needed. The grains and everything needed, they provided for them. This tells us the Paul's relationship, not only the relationship, but Paul's faith in God. Because you cannot separate them. You cannot separate Paul as a person and this person's faith in God. You can't, because Paul never could. He lived for God. Therefore, these people who have accepted Paul as somebody to honor and respect, they must have accepted his God too. And that's my conclusion. Why was he ended up in the island where they never would plan? It's so that these people, the tribal people, to be able to hear the name of God, the Jesus Christ. Not only 276 people have witnessed. And so all these people finally ended up traveling all the way to the Rome after that. Even if everyone has a destination in life, we all have a destination, some kind of destination. You may be thinking it's a destination, maybe it's not a destination. But anyway, but to those who work to reveal the glory of God, this is quite interesting. To those who work to reveal the glory of God, it's not about missionary, it's not about minister. Actually, I'm talking about whoever believes in God. That's what it's for, we live. Is to reveal the glory of God. What is the purpose of life? If anybody asks you, to become a doctor, engineer, or to make millionaire, I don't know what. You may think that way, but actually for us Christians, it's not about something that we achieve, but what it is everything we do to display the glory of God. That's the right answer. That's the purpose of our life. And there's a time to wait. In order for that to happen, you got to know there's a time to wait. There's a time to depart. There's time to depart. There's time to stay, but there's also time to depart. Or there's a place to passing through. You may not like it, but you need to be there for 3 months at least. Paul, that's what happened to them. The winter season, it was how long that was. Just couldn't leave, even they wanted to. And that happened in life. So look to your own life. You may have this job, you may go to this school, you have this circumstances, and all these about your own life. It's a journey. It's a journey. And then you need to ask yourself, who am I? Am I staying in the place? Am I in another foreign land somewhere? But what does it matter? I wish that God would somehow speak to you and give you a peace and joy in enduring the place that you are at, the time, the moment that you live through. And that's what we learn from Paul's life. And we all Christians need to realize that it's not only just this worldly life that we have to live, but it is to fulfill the purpose God has for us. That it is everything we do has a meaning. Everything we do has to have a value in it. And that it is to make the Creator, the person, the being that created us be honored in whatever we do. And that's a grandiose purpose in life. And that is noble purpose than anything that we can dream of. Okay, let's pray.